Okay, give me just a second here. Gotta switch counts to this channel. Pop out the chat. Bing. And then bam. There we go. And not even going to give me time to say hello, are you? No, he's not. The second he was sitting down there, crouched and ready, just waiting for me to start talking at the microphone, weren't you? Yeah. You guys have no idea how much black hair I had on my white shirt 2 days ago, last session. Oh, fuzzbutt. Yeah. Now, first of all, if you're watching this later on after the fact on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. And bell icon, you know. And Cubic Photon does an amazing job. Now, I'm going to put you down on the ground, you little fuzz bucket. I don't care how snuggly you are and how much, how much you like me. I need to be able to broadcast. Don't go to sleep on me. Furball? Hey, kitty cat. Yeah, yeah, I'm putting you down. Okay, I'm sitting on the floor. And there you go. Go on. Scoot. Okay. Yeah. Now, I got, what, 2.5 seconds, maybe, before he flopped back up here and immediately started rolling over in my arms. Yes? What are you doing? Yeah, how many cats just sit there and stretch like this while you're petting their belly? And then start licking your hand while you're doing it. Fuzzball. Look, fuzzbutt, I gotta do this broadcast, okay? Yes. Now go! Go! Alright. Now what I was trying to say is I did a little bit of an experiment the other day. I put blue ink on a clear print. What's even better is because of the way the ink settles, oh, come on. It actually does shade. Oh, come on, stop that. But yeah, it actually does shade. Although it probably need to be watered down to really shade better. Yeah, I had it for a second, and you could see how the chainmail was just perfectly picked out. But just to show you what they look like before. Before, after ink. I figure I could probably water it down about a 1-to-1 ratio and get a much better look of blue with shading. Now the reason I did that was just like a little... I'm going to use these not so much for painting practice, but for experimenting on techniques. Like this for... If I print out something like... Oh... Let me dig in here for a second. Yeah. Say I print her out with that shield. I can paint her, leave the shield bare, clear resin, and then paint it with the ink so that it picks out all that surface detail on the shield. And then have a nice, cool looking magical effect on her hand. Anyway. Yes. It amazes me how he just rolls over in my arms like that. Can I do my show? Can I do my show? Okay. Now, the plan tonight, I was going to ask what D&D monster... Oh yeah, it's that should not be your only reason. I mean, come on, the detail level, even on just purely opaque things. But what I was going to say was, the plan for tonight, as they say, no plan survives contact with the enemy. The plan tonight is to do a D&D creature. There's not a huge number of figures of. So I'm not quite sure which one that would be. I want something that's moderately interesting to look at, moderately often used, and not that common. Everyone's using the same exact sculpts. No. So, either that or just something that's just really interesting to look at, whether it's used often or not. By the way, just checking in on the Green Tide. I'm at 5,531. No! Which means the goblins are go, number one. Number two, we are a long way away from the war machines. The Odiug? Yeah, I guess I could do an Odiug. And I'm going to use a different technique to make it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and double check. Google image search, just to double check on... Okay, so, officially, it's got a big maw, 3 legs, and 3 tentacles. One tentacle has eyes on a spade, and the other 2 have spikes on a spade. And the official D&D miniature for the Odiug is hideous and awful. I mean, we're talking hideous. So, I guess we can do that. We'll do an Odiug. Alright. Now, that means we're actually going to start off, in ZBrush, because we're going to be using what's called Z-spheres. I'm going to show you a new technique for modeling. And so for that, we're here. Now, we're not going to be importing anything. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to, on the simple brush, we are going to go over this way until we get to number 46, Z-spheres. And you'll notice that they're red. We're going to start off with one big Z-sphere in the center. And we're going to hit X to make sure everything we do is symmetrical. Now the first thing we're going to do is we need to go to the back, and right about there, here, we're going to create this to give it kind of a back end, and then we're going to use move, and we're going to move it kind of down a bit, because we're going to make it more of a galloping pose than the stumpy squat pose that we normally see. We're also going to go ahead, let's go back to draw, we're going to add one up front to make the maw wider. Yeah, that's good. Actually, let's go ahead and move the back one to there. Now, if you'll notice, what happens when I draw a sphere, let's say I put one on the sides here for the front legs. Follow me and make sure I rotate it a little bit so I'm not going over that. When I draw a sphere, it's connected to these other spheres. Okay, we're going to scale these is what we're going to do. And let's move up and zoom out a little so I can scale them a little bit bigger. That's our front hips. Now we're going to move them a little bit closer in. Nope, there. That's our hip. Now we're going to draw in a forward joint, a forward leg. We're going to move this up there. And then give it a calf. And this we're going to move back just a little. Actually, come to think of it, we can probably go ahead and move this back there. And then this over here. Make them a little bit shorter, because they are kind of stumpy. And then we're going to draw in one here. This will end up leading to the foot. And we're going to scale it up quite a bit, because when we go to model it, it's going to be kind of a broad, stumpy hoof. Now we're going to add one in the back. I was going to have to. This is an Odieg. It's going to be kind of near the bottom. This one will be not, I repeat, not digitigrade like this, but rather planigrade. Okay. And then we're going to draw one heading to the front. And kind of pull it back a little. Okay, we need to pull this up there. And this one up there, and this kind of back a bit. It's going to be a much shorter, stumpier leg. And then draw from back here. Okay. Now another thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead, well, let's move this out there, a little bit shorter. There. We're going to pull this down a little bit more, and this, yeah. Actually, let's shrink them. Scale. And let's move this up there. And then we're going to move this one up a bit. Make it more obviously a leg. Alright. Now we go back to draw, and we need to draw on our 3 tentacles. Now our tentacles are going to be counterset. I'm going to put the one for the eyes up front, and the one for the weapons in the back. By countersetting it like this, we're kind of screwing with expectations. We're going to scale these up just a bit because we need them a bit bigger to have some serious tentaclage. Okay. Alright, we're going to go ahead and move these down because we want the feet to be roughly on the ground. Okay, now we're going to make our tentacles, and we're going to make them come straight out. Okay, it's going to sound odd, but this one, and we're going to move it. Zoom in just to about there. And we're going to select these, move them about there. Oh, no. We need to make a draw. Okay, that's what we needed to do. And then move it out. And we can see that's going to be our tentacles. Now the thing is, right now they're all sticky outy. That's not cool. So what we need to do, we go to draw, and then we're going to add in every, say, 1, 2, 3, 4. Was it control or was it shift? No. Oh, no. No, what was it? Okay, just adding in 1, 2, 3, 4 there. 1, 2, 3, 4 there. 1, 2, 3, 4 there. Basically, every third one ends up being one of these, what are called Z-spheres. The reason is because when it comes time to pose it, we're going to need these in place so we can bend it in all sorts of funky ways. For all intents and purposes, each of these Z-spheres is the center of joint rotation as well as something to build volume. There's more advanced techniques. Basically, there's ways to add mass without adding a lot of geomodification, but we won't need that for this guy. Okay. Now the next thing that we're actually going to do is we're going to convert this into geometry we can sculpt on. And hello, Mark. So what we're going to do, we're going to duplicate the Z tool and hide the second one. Then we are going to adaptive skin preview. Okay, that's not good enough. Adaptive skin, let's increase the density for Dynamesh resolution this to 512. No. That's not good. No. Why is it not doing that? Let's try this. No. Alright, classic skinning. No. No. Okay, this is not a happy thing. That's a little bit more like what we want. Yeah, there we go. We're going to take the Dynamesh resolution down to 128. Yeah. Alright. Make adaptive skin. Now, go back up to subtool. We're not going to do much to it right now in terms of shaping, because what we got to do is we got to blend it all in. Now, as you can see from, let me put this back in draw mode. As you can see from the polygon tool, it's got some pretty large polygons, but not huge. What we're going to do here is mostly smooth out the overlapping areas so that they kind of blend in. I think the reason we had this issue with the head is because the legs are so close. Okay. We turn off the polygon. We need to pull this out, so we're going to go ahead and use the standard brush. We're going to go to stroke and turn off the lazy mouse. We're going to turn on brush size. Okay, Shinji, come on. Come on, little fuzzbutt. Yeah, just stare at me, why don't you? Okay. We're going to kind of pull this out a bit. And then smooth it. There she goes. Alright. And that's what we wanted there, is to kind of pull that in together and smooth that out. Now, the next thing that we need to do is that we need to isolate the forms. And by that I mean we need to put in the basic masses. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use the Trim Rectangle tool. Oh, actually, first I'm going to use the Move tool. Make it about the size of this hoof. I'm going to pull that down. Pull this down just a bit more. Then, Trim Rectangle. Okay. Control Alt. Oh, not Control Alt. Control Shift. I'm going to pull up to there. That's the bottom of our hooves. We're going to go back in and refine that later, but for now, that's the bottom of our hooves. Okay, now, from here we are going to basically do a very rough overall shaping of the geometry. Let me pull that out. For example, let's grab the front here. No, we need to make that a little bit bigger. And we're going to mask off down here. Grab here. There. Grab here and pull out to the side. Then invert it. I'm going to grab down here. Oh. Invert, and we're going to grow the masking. And then grab down here and pull out to there. Not a lot of opening yet, but that's because we don't need it massively open yet. And then we're going to smooth out here. Now, there's really no real world anatomy we can equate to on this critter. Go ahead and smooth out the back here and thin down the back hip area. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to give it what anatomy we can using the inflate tool and the standard tool as our primary weapons of choice. And we're still working on 40,000 polygons, not a huge amount. We're going to kind of draw in a basic jawbone and kind of smooth out there. And then a little bit of a baggy underneath the neck. And then it has no eyes on this part of the head. So it's just going to have a ridge leading to the nasal. I don't know if Odiags actually have a nasal, but we're gonna try. We're gonna give it a basic ridge and then a cheekbone. We're also gonna take our smooth tool and drop it down in intensity so we can use it for a bit more of just smoothing it out rather than major hogging of material. And we're going to bring in a skull ridge here. Now it's bold of us to assume it's got a skeleton, but hey. We're starting off with major masses, so next will be a shoulder plate, which on quadrupeds with this kind of shoulder anatomy tend to be more of almost a vertical wing coming out from the shoulder area. Let me smooth that out. And then there's a bit of a bony landmark over here. I'm going to give it a bit of a harder edge. And then giving it a bony landmark to the back of the, well, basically this would be the spur of the heel in a plantigrade. And we're going to move in down here, really kind of emphasize that tendon that a lot of animals have on their back of their pastern, or whatever their particular species calls that part of the leg, or is whatever that part of the leg is called on their particular species. Then we're going to make the muscle involved here. I'm going to start off with a quasi-deltoid. Move it out. And then make it bigger. We want to try to simulate what might be anatomy without losing the alienness and wrongness of the creature. Let's smooth that out. Also, let's go ahead and smooth out this right here. This spot is a little bit too bulgy. I know that was our shoulder pad, but it was bulgy and not what we wanted. We wanted more of a sudden flat rise, not a bulge. Okay. And then we're going to add in a bit here to represent what would be the triceps. We're still basing it off arm anatomy, we're just changing what connects where. A pectoral down here. And let's erase that. We're going to bring this over. This is going to be kind of like a stretchy bit. And then another connecting muscle for this movement. If you're trying to create a muscular from scratch, you've got to consider every potential movement that joint will make. Now in here, we're going to give it what would have been the shin muscles, because almost all of our arm muscles were engulfed by the mass. At the same time, we're going to give it calf muscles just to add some additional, we can tell that's a muscle, but why is that there? Yeah. You want to do all of your low, your broad, full muscles and things like that, your major masses on low poly like this, so it's a lot easier to make them end up smoother in the final sculpt, and then you can just go in and focus on refining the edges. Okay, now let me go ahead and get a sip of soda real quick. Now, we need to generate a hip anatomy for something that has only one rear leg. So, the hip has anchor points up here, in this case for the tentacles as well as for the back, and aiming towards the front of the critter. Normally, on the back of the hip, we'd have the coccyx for a tailbone. Let's go ahead and give it a vestigial tail, just to kind of emphasize that this is in fact a hip. Okay. Vestigial tail, let's go ahead and use the move tool to kind of pull that out a bit more. Okay, back to inflate. We're then going to give it a little bit more mass around up here, kind of emphasize the strength of the beast. Okay, now we're going to assume that in here, instead of having a single thigh bone, it's got a dual thigh bone. So it's going to have both gluteuses attached at once. And then it's going to have almost, since we're going to keep the mirrored structure for now, it's going to have a dual hamstring and outer thigh muscle setup. While I'm thinking about it, I'm going to do one more thing. It's select these polygons right here by masking. Then we're going to inverse, shrink the mask a little bit just to make it like that. Then we go to move. We're going to drag it down, so we have a bit more room to work on our hooves. Yeah, there we go. Now, on the front, we're going to have, actually, let's go ahead and go back to drawings. Bring that intensity back to 100%. We're going to smooth right here, because what's going to happen is we're going to have the abdominals lead directly into the front of the thigh. Then we got our knee cap. And our calves. And then our ankle. And then this will be our hoof. Okay. Frame out. Okay, we can kind of minimize that just a little bit. Yeah, there we go. As you can see, it's getting a lot more like what you would expect. Now we're going to have the wrist bones here and here. We're going to smooth out this because we're going to end up drawing some tendons on it. One from over here, one from down center, and one from here. And then we're going to go ahead and enlarge this hoof. We're going to make it a three-toed hoof on the front, kind of like, you know, like an elephant or other critter. And in the center, we're going to increase the pad, make sure it's nice and smooth out just a little. Let's smooth that a little bit more. Okay. So that is the basic musculature and bony anatomy of our critter. Now, one other thing we need to do while we're here, before we need to add some initial mounting muscles up the center of the base of the tentacles. Something a lot of people don't think of, but for something that is a vertebrae with tentacles, it probably would act more like a tail than a octopus tentacle and just spring out of nowhere. So we have these mounting muscles. Okay. Now we need to make it a little bit wider up here. And smooth it out just a bit. There we go. And then similar ones on the side ones. Let's make the mouse a little bit larger because we want to make it a little bit heftier. There. Let's bring this up. Okay, and then one coming in down here. Because we want to kind of fit them in where they're not going to overlap with the regular quote-unquote muscles. Okay, let's smooth out the tops of these. And then the last thing that we need to do, well, after we've gotten the tops of the tentacle muscles all set up, we need to flatten the spades. And for that, what we're going to do is we're going to use the move tool, actually move topological. And we're going to shrink it just a bit, grab the sides, pull them out and down, and then kind of down a bit more. And the tip, and smooth out the tip. And now, we're going to make it bigger and stretch it out more. We're going to thicken straight down the back of that with the inflate tool. And a little bit down to this angle here. And, oh, let's reduce that intensity of that so we can smooth rather than hog material away. There we go. Now here we're going to do the same thing, but we got to do it on both sides at once simply because, well, we're dealing with a non-symmetrical tentacle. We're kind of dragging it like that. This is also the attack tentacle. bring that down a bit. Move out the inside down here and the tip. Try and make it a bit more pointed, and then we go to our inflate tool, and once again inflate the back a bit. It's got some muscle to it, or some thickness, and some down here. Okay, we have our basic shape right now. So now we're going to geometry. Okay. We're going to Dynamesh. And what that does, that fixes a lot of the geometry issues that we were having. For example, right, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start working on that inner mouth. It is 8:45. It didn't take very long to get our basic shape, huh? Yeah, I'm not doing an Abberant. My sexual preferences don't work that way. We're going for move topological. Gonna kind of go back that way, and then we're gonna shrink this and pull open the mouth a bit, not a lot, and then I'm gonna make it bigger to about there. Oh, make it smaller because we don't want it to be connected to any vertexes that are connected to, yeah, it's, grab it and move it down. We also don't want it to look happy. Okay, let's frame out. Okay, I think we've, for the most part, we've got our base anatomy, except this is going to be weird. I'm going to take this here. I'm then going to, under visibility, we're going to, not visibility, masking, we're going to blur the mask quite a bit. And then deformation, size. Oh wait, before we do size, masking, inverse, deformation. Shrinking it a bit. And then we're going to move it down a little and back a little. Then we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to select the foot, blur the mask quite a bit. Actually, we need to select more than the foot. We need to select there. Inverse, and then pull it down. And rotate it a little bit like that, and then pull it up. To give it a bit more room on that hoof. We also need to go ahead, going back to draw. We're going to move the front of the hoof in and the knee and shin areas back a little bit to make more clearly define the hoof. Okay. Now, see what happens if we... No. Now we need to do some detail work. So we're going to geometry, we're going to higher resolution. Okay, let's make Polymesh 3D. And append PMD 3D sphere. Okay, shrink, make that invisible. Now this, we can do our usual techniques of subdivision. We did one level of subdivision there that drops it, that increases it 267,000. And as you can see, the polygons are a lot smaller. Now it's still looking a little lumpy. So I'm going to deformation, I'm going to give it a full relax. And then a full polish. Okay. Now we're going to bring our smooth back to 100, make it a lot bigger, and we're going to smooth over some of these areas just to make them a bit more, you know, so they're there, but they're not as firmly defined to imply a buildup of fatty tissue over the area. Fatty tissue and skin. There. That fixes a lot of the issues we were having. Alright, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to further define that mouth. With the Move Topological tool, we're shrinking down. We're going to try and shrink down a lot. Okay, that's where we want to be. And then we're going to grab here and pull it over. Also going to kind of pull up like this to further define that. We're going to pull down like this to further define the bottom of the mouth. I like the idea of having kind of like a little beak. So we're going to pull that down. Now it's going to end up having teeth. This is going to end up being the tongue. But as you notice, we're now kind of like giving a nice harder edge to the mouth by doing what we're doing. Okay. Now, we need to define the shape of the lip. We're actually going to use the inflate tool, smaller, not a lot smaller, and a little bit weaker. And we're going to draw on where the lip will be. It's going to go on past down there. Let's go back to Move Topological. We're going to grab the upper part of the... Oh, we need a little bit bigger than this. We're going to grab the upper part and pull it up. Because we want it to look more like a beast than a happy, dancy, weird thing, which it is in at least one of the monster manuals. Move that topological down again. Let's bring this out. And smooth it. And then gonna grab here and pull. Oh no, here, pull out a little bit. Just very faint taps of the smooth tool. Okay. Now we're going into slash. There it is. Turn off lazy mouse, bring it a whole lot weaker, and make it a good bit larger. What we're going to do here is we're going to kind of emphasize the division here. No, not that. Not the bottom one. The bottom one's going to come later, but we're going to emphasize that. We're going to draw on another division here. And then going to shrink it, and we're going to do a little trick. We're going to draw in our nostril, smooth. That gives us a nice big depression. We draw it in again, smooth again. It gives us a nice big old depression for our nostril. We're now going to go ahead and draw a circle and a line. We're going to go back and forth a couple times. Bring that intensity down. We're just going to widen it just a little. And then a little bit more down here. We have our nostrils. Using nothing but slash and the smooth tool. Do I want to know what Bear just said that got deleted? Okay, with the slash, we're going to go ahead and make it bigger. We're going to drop it down even more, and we're going to go ahead and emphasize a couple of these areas that we really want to emphasize, like the space underneath this one muscle, because, you know, it gives us that nice little. Then we're going to. There we go. We're also going to kind of come in like, whoop, like here. Sub. Also, I need to turn on back face masking. Hold on a second. Oh, thank you. Why did you retract your hello? Okay, I'm gonna pull this down here and then smooth it. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, that gives us a nice better definition on that muscle. We're going to add in a little bit more definition between the pecs and going up. And then we're going to smooth it. Make it look a little bit more organic and less like a crease. Now, we're going to add in a rib cage definition here. And smooth it. Come down this way and smooth it. And then with the Z add, we're going to kind of go down the center and smooth it. We are not going to emphasize the butt. We are going to emphasize a couple of the muscle groups down here, however. Especially right here. And then back behind like that. And under the ankles. down here. Smooth that out, come around this way. Now, we're going to go ahead and dive down here and here. And then on the sides. And hit smooth on all of them. Just one pass. To kind of emphasize those. Now we're also going to kind of dig in. Kind of just do that. And then smooth. That gives us a bit more of an apparent bicep shape. And then we're also going to come down here, pull that. We're trying to give it at least a vague, semi-realistic, recognizable anatomy here. Okay, I would say that the overall shaping of the body is done. The tentacles need bits like the eyes and the spikes. But the spikes and eyes can actually be added at a higher degree of resolution. Now, I'm going to go in here and smooth out the inner mouth. I'm then going to shrink this. I'm going to give it an outline. Whoop. Alright. Start here, and we're going to come around. 1, 2, 3. And then a little bit just to kind of emphasize the fact that it goes back into the throat. Then inflate down the sides to give it a little groove in the tongue, and then okay, we have a tongue. And now comes the time where I'm going to show you how to make the teeth. And at 267,000 polygons, that is by exporting it as an OBJ. No, let's go up to the storage, home, meshes, free sculpt minis, broadcast miniatures, new, ODUG, raw, ODUG. Now, one thing that will be different about this sculpt from all of my others, and all of my others, I sculpt after I pose. In this, I will be posing after I sculpt. No furball. Don't jump into my lap right now. Now, 3D Studio Max. File. Import. And meshes. Free sculpt. Broadcast miniatures. New. ODUG. Raw ODUG. And then because I don't want it to take too long, I might have a decent video card now, but it's not great. It's better than it was. I also don't know the size that I'm currently working on yet. But what we're going to do is we're going to go from here, we're going to Pro Optimizer. Crunch borders, don't keep material boundaries, and calculate. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Okay. 267,000 for a text count. Let's drop that to 2,000. Because we don't need the exact, we just need the general area. Actually, we need to drop that to make that 8,000. Because we need a bit more, we need the definition of the lips. Okay. Collapse all. Now, the reason we did that is that we can manipulate. We're going to be making basically spikes for the teeth. Now, the easiest way to do them is actually a sphere with 12 segments. We're going to start off with the ones in the top of the mouth. We're going to make them a little thick and stubby. Okay, this is definitely going to need some enlarging, because we're looking at very nearly, this might be 2 millimeters big. Now let's go ahead and reduce the radius a bit. Oh, that was way too fast. Yeah. Now, edible poly. We're going to select here, pull it out just a little, select here, pull it out just a little, select here, and pull it out just a little. That makes our tooth. Now, bring it out to there, and up. And we're going to rotate it a little bit. Okay. And now, before I do anything else, I'm going to get some soda. Oh, come on. Need soda. Here we go. New soda. It's like loading it. What do you need for a ball? Come on. Okay, go. Go. Too fuzz. Sorry about that. One of the best prints I ever made. Now, we need to kind of move it a bit further towards the back of the mouth. Not that far. About there, yeah. What we're going to do is we're going to make copies until we get to the front of the mouth. And then we're going to be playing with the size of them and the placement. So for example, this one we're going to go ahead and make bigger and pull down. Then select that and attach this, this, and this. We're going to then copy it on the Y. Because we're going to bring it down, rotate it, and then we're going to move some of the individual pieces. Like this one is not going to be as large. This one is definitely not we're going to pivot it around. Okay, now I'm going to take these and attach this, so that's all one. And let's give it a mesh smooth. This 1, 2. There, we've got kind of sharp pointed peg-like teeth. We need to make one modification that I can see. We need to pull that one back inside the lip. Okay, then here we now need to change the pivot point to 0 and then mirror it on the X. From here we go to Reset Transform. Oh, Reset selected, and you notice it turned black because it's actually a negative scale. When it mirrors, it scales across, and it gives it a negative scaling. Now we hit normal, which flips the normals, and we got them good. Collapse all. And we have our teeth. So we're going to select there, and we're going to attach the other teeth. We're going to File, Export Selected, Wavefront OBJ, Meshes, Free Sculpt Minis, Broadcast Miniatures, New, ODEG, OD Teeth. Export. Okay. Done. We go back into ZBrush. We go to Subtool, and we're going to insert Polymesh 3D. This Polymesh 3D, we're going to import OD teeth. They look pretty good, pretty intimidating bite. And it's a roughly similar density. I'm going to just, one of the last things I'm going to do is blend them in. So I just increased them to a much higher polygon density. I mean, look at that. You can see how small those are, but you can still see how large these polygons are. Alright, frame back out. Now, the next thing we're going to do on our OD body is we're going to give it another layer of subdivision. Lower. Right now we're at 1 million polygons, and we're going to make the eyes. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to start off by giving, let's make it 4 eyes. All right, it's currently on inflate. Let's make it so that it won't. Okay. Now we're going to increase the intensity up to about 27. No, it's too much. Let's drop it down to 13. Now let's make it make it 5 eyes. And then we're going to smooth out the areas around them. This will be the location of our 5 eyes. $9.15. Okay. After we do the eyes, we're going to start doing skin textures and that. We go to slash. I got it selected. What did I do that for? Shrink it a bit. And we're going to draw on where the eyes are. And then Okay. The eyes are pretty simple. We're going back to inflate. We're going to shrink this down quite a bit. We're going to inflate. Oh. Drop that intensity down. I'm going to kind of pull this out to emphasize the eyelids. Just to make sure we got plenty to paint on, because it's not just printing we're trying to make it make easier. We're trying to make painting easier. And some eye bags just to go with it. Okay. I still say that that Endgame needs to make up for the failing that Infinity War has. At some point, Iron Man and Doctor Strange, at different points for each, needs to say to the other, "No shit, Sherlock." Okay. You see how these eyes, how we're handling these eyes. We're kind of just drawing out the eyelid. And then smoothing the top so that it blends over the eye. We're going to come back in and kind of smooth out these eyes in a bit. But the eyelid detail is more important to get working. Come under, and then under. Smooth out under here. Okay. Just to give it a little bit of a bit of a weirdness, just get in some what could have been sinus areas, but obviously aren't. Okay, now we're going to smooth out this eye. We're going to first increase the intensity so we can hog off mass, not just refine detail. Okay, and let's check off that top one. Okay, we need to make it just a little bit more smooth. And then we're going to go back to slash, and we're going to shrink the mouse, increase the intensity, and we're going to go ahead and double check the digging in around the eye. Okay. Okay. Let's smooth that because I kind of screwed that up. Okay. And now the bottom eyes. We need to make sure we get these guys pretty sharp here. Right. Okay. So we got the eyes on that one done. And now for the claws. Now for the spines on here. And actually, the way we're going to do it is going to be a bit strange. No, my mic is a blue. It's just I'm about that far from it. I really need to figure out how to get this blue snowball to work perfectly. Ah. Alright. The next step is actually going to be Photoshop. We're going to open a PDF that I made a while back. There is the PDF. Not PDF, PSD. There we go. Cone Spike Alpha. Now, we're going to increase its height and width to 2048. 48. So that we have basically, this is going to be a tiny spike. I'm going to make a new layer. Go to pen, hardness 100%, and let's make it 512. Okay, that's the size we need to make the erased bit. 768. No, 1024. View show grid. Edit preferences, guides, grid, slices. Alright. Grid, color. Make it a little pink. And every 124 pixels with, let's make it 512 pixels then with one subdivision. Now, click here, and we take our eraser, 512, no, 768, and we erase here. Now, filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and we increase the radius until, yeah, okay. What we're doing is this is going to be like the little fleshy pad around the spike. Now, edit, transform, scale, link it. Let's make that a little bit smaller. There we go. That's good. View, show, grid. Now what this is what's called a height map. Call this bulge spike. Oh, bulge spike. Now we go back to ZBrush, and we're going to go to layer, change dots to drag dot, and change the brush alpha to bulge spike. Import. Now we're going to make the intensity up to 100, and we're going to increase the draw size a bit. And as you can see, that's what it'll end up looking like, but we've made it way too small. So let's make it quite a bit bigger. Yeah, here we go. Alright, now it's too big this time, because we want to make at least 4 on each side of this. And we're going to make the last one bigger. Three. And then a couple here. Oh yeah, let's turn off lazy mouse. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Big one at the tip. And a big one down here. And a big one down here. And we have our spikes. Oh, shnikes. We forgot to do one thing. We forgot to turn on backface masking. Alright, now let's go back down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There. 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 And there. And then one here. Actually, let's give it a little bit larger here. Really big one up top. Down here and down here. So our raduli have our spikes. This is everything needed for an Odiug. It is not a finished Odiug. Now we've got everything that we need, we can get into detailing it. Let's go ahead and close this. We're going to use the clay buildup brush with Alpha 1. So what are y'all thinking so far about the big ol' nasty Odiug? In fact, I think I will continue this on Tuesday. We're going to do the detailing and posing of this sucker then. So what we're going to do from here is we go save as a tool into our Broadcast Miniatures new Odiug. Odiug.ztl. Everything is there. All that's left now is detailing, giving it some skin details, some wrinkling, some warts, maybe a couple open sores, and then posing it. I can already say that the mouth is as open as it will be. I don't have a bone for the mouth, but that's all we really need, especially if it's like lunging forward with tentacular madness. Now, we're going back to here. So, that is the initial sculpting of the Odiug. It is 9:30. Does anyone have any questions or topics you wish to discuss? Okay. Hello? Anyone? Wakey wakey! Oh, just to show you, I haven't gotten around to finishing these guys yet, but I am still working on painting some more orcs. As you can see, he doesn't have his staining yet on his lips, chin, nose, or cheeks. Backface masking, the slider is kind of tricky. What it is that's the angle at which you stop affecting. At 90 degrees, which is the default, it's see, he realized I was done sculpting. Ugh. Once you get beyond 90 degrees is pretty much great for everything except inflate. Inflate, I tend not to turn backface masking on. If I need to do something that I'd normally do with inflate, with backface masking, I use another tool. And Largash, as for my collection, which edition? And are you including PDF copies of hard copies that I've already got? I do not download PDFs of anything I do not already have the hard copy for. Oh, yeah. Yes, I am a necromancer. If you understand the Japanese tiny little bit smidgens, you'll get a kick out of that. Or if you're a weeb, like me. Yes, I'm an old man weeb. If you mean 3rd edition, then yeah, I only have the core 3, the player's handbook, DMG, monster manual. Everyone else in the group has a smattering of the other books, like the Volo's Guide, the Xanathar, things like that. The Sword Coast Guide, and so on. I have exactly one book from 4th edition, a player's handbook. I have lost count of how many 3.5 books I have, official and third party. I didn't just try to create a module. Let me pull up a picture. I made an entire world. Ta-da! Complete with multiple religions, ethnicities, nations, etc., that tried to solve a lot of problems I saw as annoying in most D&D settings. And I created an entire role-playing game system around it. The problem is, I don't have a lot of veteran role players. Too many of the people I know are D&D 5e only right now. And it's such a different system, they can't quite get the hang of it. I'm going to remove that. I know you're about to ask the problems that I see with most campaign settings. Number 1. The single biggest source of conflict in the world doesn't exist. competing religions. In a typical fantasy world, everybody knows that, for example, Hexter is the god of evil conquest, and Torm is the god of this, and they have very specifically defined portfolios, and everybody knows it because their clerics can cast miracles in their name, and in many cases, like the Forgotten Realms, the gods have come to the planet and said, "Hi, we're here. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I look like. This is my symbol, and this is what my priests get." So, there's no doubt. There's no faith. Because it's a fact. It is an incontrovertible fact that that entity is, the Bahamut is the god of good dragons, and he's followed by 7 canaries that are gold dragons in disguise, and yeah. Hold on, Largash. I'm still doing the previous one. Hold on. So I decided that in this world, clerics don't have divine power. Someone using the D&D class of cleric or druid or any other class with divine spellcasting, that's why I made my own gazetteer. Anyway, any kind of divine spellcaster, it's arcane magic, but they just have like a life cleric is a mage from this school who has an affinity for healing magic. A trickster priest is actually a mage from this school that has an affinity for pranking. That kind of thing. It's the rules stay the same, but the fluff changes. The only thing that is known is that the demon gods are real. They want to destroy or consume or enslave the world, and something is stopping them, but nobody knows what. So different religions have appeared in different portions of the continents and all over the world. Some are pantheistic like the ancient Greeks, some are more philosophical like Buddhism, and so on and so forth. So where the conflicts hit, that's when you've got war. The second thing that I didn't like was racial languages. Let's say Earth had elves, dwarves, orcs, and all that. By D&D standards, an elf born in London, England, speaks the exact same dialect of Elven as one born in Japan. No. No racial languages. Instead of a racial language, you speak your national language. An elf, dwarf, or orc born in England speaks English. The orc probably a little bit crudely. What are you doing over there? An elf, dwarf, or orc born in Japan speaks Japanese. They also will have features similar to Asian humans. They will have the culture of the area they were born. There is no elven monolithic culture. An elf from England wears tweed and drinks tea and complains about the BBC. And so I got rid of that. Number 3. Immortal elves. Let's say that elves, as D&D presents them, existed in our world. Someone is researching the various bandit tales that were conglomerated into the overall story of Robin Hood, which there's really only like 2 or 3 actual stories of Robin Hood. All of the rest of them, including the infamous archery contest, were other bandits whose stories got concatenated over time so that the Robin Hood we picture is a Gestalt character. Well, if somebody's doing research on it, they can just simply go to their elven buddy Tom's grandpa. Hey, Tom's grandpa, what did you think of Robin Hood? Oh man, he was a jerk. He wasn't this rob from the rich and give to the poor. No, he was rob from the rich, give to me. Oh look, there's a poor person, give him a copper. So there's a lot lost when they can go to an elf and find out everything that happened millennia ago. So my elves live 250 years. My dwarves live 150. My humans live 80. They have that lifespan because of magical healing, but yeah. Anyway, so lifespan. So we covered deities, language, culture, and lifespan. The next thing that annoys me about most D&D worlds is medieval stagnation. And the worst offender of this is the Forgotten Realms. The Forgotten Realms tech level is, on the one hand, early firearms, matchlocks, not flintlocks, not anything more recent, it's matchlocks. You light a wick on the back of your gun, and you pull the trigger, and it puts the wick into the powder, and then it goes boom. They've also got full plate, war swords, rapier and dagger, bucklers. So, roughly an early Renaissance, late medieval tech level. Well, one of the mages, Elminster, is 6,000 years old. And there was a series of books about when he was 18. And they had matchlocks, war swords, rapier and dagger, and bucklers. In general, we're in early medieval, or early Renaissance, late medieval tech level. For 6,000 years. So my world actually has development of, the first city-states, the first empires, Bronze Age moving to Iron Age, moving to Steel Age, and they're just now moving into the early Renaissance. If you find a sword from 300 years ago, assuming it's magical and therefore not rusting out, it's a style that's not used anymore, like the way a Viking sword was not used in the early Middle Ages, or in the late Middle Ages, rather. And if you find one from 1,000 years ago, it's iron and not steel. From 3,000 years ago, it's bronze, and it's a falcata, not a longsword. Or maybe it's a short sword if it's like the Greek style. Or the Roman style, rather. So, that's my biggest problems with most campaign worlds. And in my world, I solved all of those. It's got problems. For example, it's got way too many fantasy counterpart cultures. But that's because it's difficult for a human being to predict what the culture is going to be like. I mean, even your best, most varied worlds. I mean, yes, the Dunmer of Elder Scrolls are a unique culture compared to the real world. But the Nords are Norse. The Imperials are Italian/Roman. The Bretons are England and France. And the Dwemer were Babylon/Sumer. The Khajiit, you get the picture. Even the best worlds with the most varied cultures have fantasy counterpart culture. So I created a world based on those concepts. I used the best, the best amateur geographer information I could. Like, rivers always flow into one another. They don't split unless you're at a delta, in which case that's not a splitting river, that's a wide-mouthed river with a few islands. Rivers always go from high altitude to low altitude. Lakes only have one exit. They might have multiple rivers feeding them, but they'll only have one exit. Things like that. Oh, and forests will tend to be on the windward side of mountains, deserts on the leeward side. Okay, now Largash, like I said, I answered the question about racial languages. Races speak the language of the country they're from, and they have an ethnicity similar to the other races in that area. An elf from the equivalent of Spain would be a little bit duskier skinned than an elf from the equivalent of Norway. Meanwhile, okay, it's quarter till. Got time for a few more questions. Yeah. Oh, side note. Another reason I dislike super long-lived elves. Even if it's only 750 years like modern 5th edition elves, instead of 2,000 years for gray elves in 1st edition, 2nd edition, let's say an elf ascended to the throne at the age of 200. A moderately young elf, but still, equal to about a late 20s human. In, let's say the early Renaissance, 400 years ago. He'd be like a 70-year-old man and still be ruling England. 15 generations of humans have seen him as their king. Oh. Whereas if they only have a 250-year lifespan, if he ascends at, say, 60, well, he won't rule too much longer than Queen Elizabeth II already has. Dynasties won't be thousands of years, they'll, a couple centuries at the most. Plus, a human king tends to rule about 20 years on the average, because it's a generational gap. So an elven king would rule 50 years on average, enough for the typical human to see a change of kings, and they don't feel like they've got this immortal god king ruling them. Next question. Here we go. In what way, Largash? In what way should something comparable to the real world exist? What do you mean comparable? Because that could be taken in any number of ways. I think humans should be humans. Think natural animals like hawks and bears and that should be in a typical fantasy world because this is a fantasy world. Humans are easier to relate to, although some people relate better to elves or dwarves or halflings or what have you. But if there's nothing there that's recognizable, the connection isn't there. And there's a trope called "call a rabbit a smearp," and another one called "call a smearp a rabbit." Yeah, the planet is roughly 90% the size of Earth. D&D 5e's teleport is unlimited by distance. Alright, dragons. Dragons. What? Anyway, number one, there's dragons and there's drakes. Drakes are wyverns. Ampusas, which are basically tiny little dragons about yay long, more serpentine, and you can wear it on your shoulder. Anything in there, and they usually only have either 2 legs and wings, or 4 legs and no wings. Dragons, in my world, are incredibly genetically diverse and very rare. One clutch of eggs might have a dragon that looks like Alduin with 4 legs, and a dragon that looks like Pete's dragon. Just random. Size, power, speed, endurance, durability, all far greater range than humans have. Color, just out, horn pattern, just any kind of pattern could be. You could have a dragon with fins everywhere could hatch an egg for a dragon that has two big old ram horns coming forward, a short snout, and tusks. Can't know. Number two, dragons are intelligent and not benevolent. They have an island. Let me see if I can find a different map. You large icons. Okay. Boom. The white islands to the left of center on this map are ruled by the dragons. The Murosian Islands. You can kind of make out the numbers. Anyone that sails too close will probably lose half their crew to dragons swooping down and flying off with them to use as slaves. There are no dragon riders. There is no way to enslave a dragon. And if you manage it, you draw down the wrath of the entire species. And I don't care who you are. When 50 great worm dragons of every stripe swoop onto your citadel, it is going bye-bye. What? So, dragons are just there. Vampires, ghosts, and dry undead. I mean, skeletons, zombies, ghouls, they're all pretty much standard. Vampires. Countless strains, but most of them just a few individuals to a few dozen, because they've got different origins. So one strain of vampire might have no problem with garlic, might have no problem with crossing running water. But if you throw a handful of rice over your shoulder, they have to stop and count them all before they can keep following you. They're all damaged by something. One vampire might drain your blood. Another might drain the color from your being, in the process draining out some of your life force. A third might drain your strength by feeding on just the proteins in your muscles. Just different weaknesses, different strengths. One vampire strain might be able to turn into mist. Another vampire strain might be able to control evil creatures like bats and wolves and snakes. It varies by strain, and the Game Master decides which special abilities and which weaknesses it has. Ghosts. Similarly, some can be banished by simply driving a silver nail into their grave, the grave of their original body. Others, you have to dig up the body, salt it, and burn it. Others, you simply find out what's keeping it in the world. And some ghosts can move objects. Some ghosts can put illusions into your head. It's different for every ghost. And then finally you have the dry undead. Dry undead are unlike vampires in that they don't need to feed off the living. They also tend to look more desiccated. Examples would be mummies, or Skyrim's Draugr, or a lich. Liches are the only consistent dry undead. The others would have different abilities, different weaknesses, depending on how they came to be dry undead, what their culture was, and what they believed would happen if they became dry undead. Or if the ancient necromancer who brought them back used a different spell than what the others used. Oh, and yes, necromancy is mostly forgotten in my world. Hold on just a second. So, I think I've covered that. Dragons and the undead in my world. Basically, any D&D species of dragon can exist, but the alignment and personalities will vary by individual and will usually tend towards the true neutral with a tendency towards evil alignments. And any of the undead types can happen, but there's no specific difference between a crypt thing is always like this, whereas a mummy is always like this. You don't know. Now, it is 10 o'clock. It is time for me to go ahead and sign out. So I'm going to hold up my hand like this and count from 5 to 1. When I get to 1, I'm going to say something goofy and go, eh, 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 eh. And when I see that on my screen, that means I've caught up to YouTube's lag, or the 10-second bit that they do, and I can close the broadcast and say goodnight. So, that is going to be a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1. I really pity any movie that comes out between now and the 26th because Avengers Endgame will obliterate it.